Ready to craft some red, white, and blue? This video has 4 beautiful and beginner-friendly patriotic projects. 2 wreaths, 1 swag, and a pillow. They're easy, affordable, and perfect for 4th of July and all summer long. Let's dive in.
Okay, so to get started, you're going to need some florals. I'm using some red roses and these little blue flowers. I may not use the white ones, but we'll see. And I have some boxwood and your upcycled denim. And then I've got a various amounts of ribbon, and I'm going to also use some plain burlap to go with it. And you'll also need some jute string, or you'll need some thinner ribbon, like a 1/4 of an inch ribbon, 3/8 of an inch ribbon, and then any variety of ribbons that you have. All these were purchased from Hobby Lobby. Okay, so I'm going to set those aside. And then you'll also need a 12-inch wreath form, or you can use a bigger one if you prefer, or smaller, just whatever that you have on hand. Or you can get these from the Dollar Tree in a size 14-inch for $1.25. And then I have a few pieces of red, just plain red fabric, and I'm going to cut these up into strips along with my denim to put around the wreath, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to cut our denim. And I'm using old blue jeans, but you could use a denim fabric if you prefer, if you don't have any jeans that you want to cut up. Okay, and so how I'm doing this is I'm just cutting them into strips, and I've cut them into like 6 to 7 inch strips by about 2 inches. It gives you a little bit of an overhang on when you attach them to your ring, so that you'll have a little bit of ruffle flare around the edges. Okay, and also I've taken some of these darker denim pieces and I embroidered some stars on them. You can do this with a sewing machine. I did them by hand, but you don't have to put the stars on, like this. You could also buy just some decorative stars from the store and put those on here too. I'm pretty sure Dollar Tree has some of those decorative stars that you could just glue on your strips if you want. And so I've also cut the red strips, and I'm using a different color, faded blue jean strip as well. And some of them are a little bit wider, and that's okay. I find that between 1.5 to 2.5 or 3 inches is fine. I mean, it could be in different widths as well. You just want them. You're going to put them close together when you put them on the wreath form. So I don't know how many exactly that I cut or that we'll need just yet. And then I cut a bunch of the red strips, and these are probably, I think these are 1.5 inches. And then when you go to cut your strips, you can use like in the seam here, where you've got this little seam in your jean, you can use this too. It'll just give it texture, and it'll look cute on there. So how we're going to do this, we're going to take our wreath form, and I'm going to do like dark blue, light blue, dark blue, and then a red, and then just keep going all the way around, except for the top. At the top, I'm going to put these strips that have the embroidered stars on them in those sections. So I'll place that right here at the top left, so it's going to look sort of like a flag. And then on this side, we'll put our florals with some ribbons and dress it up. Okay, so just going to grab our strip, and I'll fold it evenly around so you get even hair on the end. and that's where your jute string is going to come in. I'm going to just cut like a 6-inch, 5 or 6-inch strand, and then I'm going to tie it on the ends. Tying our strips. And I'm going to scrunch it in just a little bit, and then we're going to tie it in a knot. And you just let your jute hang off. Okay, and then I'll go in with a lighter color. This is a great way to use different colors. You know, the faded and the dark. Okay. And then get your piece of jute string and tie it up in a knot and scrunch it together. Okay. This is where I'll put a red one. Okay, and if you don't like the jute strings, you know, that long, you can cut them. I just want to make them long enough so that I can tie it in a knot. And then I'll go back at the end and trim them down. And then also right here on your edges, if you have some that are longer than others, we're going to go and trim up all that evenly at the end. Okay, this is where I'll put another dark one. And I want to scrunch them close together, and so you're not going to see a lot of the red, but that's okay, because I mean, I just wanted it to be kind of settled in there, sort of like the stripes on the flag. And you can also go in and put some white strips in it if you want. They're not going to be, they're going to be kind of loose at first when you're starting out, because you just have a few here, so they might slide around a little bit. Once you start to get everything on and squinch it together, it'll get tighter and you won't have to worry about it sliding around too much. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish all the way around till I get to the top section here, this top section, and then I'll do the blue ones with the stars. And then on those, I'm not going to put the lighter color jeans or the red. It's just going to be all blue. Okay, so you can see I've got most of it done. So I'm down to the section where I want to start placing my darker blue strips that have the stars on them, are here. But first I wanted to show you, before I get to that section, whenever you're putting these together, you see how I've got them, you know, pretty snug close together. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking this strip and placing it underneath, but I'm kind of folding it over like a hem. So that way, whenever I put it on here and I squish it close up to this, you're not going to see the raw edge of the blue jean. Now you can do it that way if you want, so that you can have, you know, if you like it frayed and want a little more texture to it, you can do that. But I've been doing it this way because I don't really want, I want this section to be smooth. The only place that it's not too smooth is right here where I put the seam of the blue jean. You know, it's got that raw edge seam. And it's not too bad. I like it like that. It looks okay. So I'm okay with that. So yeah, and so then I just go and, you know, tie it on there with my jute string and pushing it up closer to the previous jean here. And you'll see the raw edge here, but when you have that folded hem of the next one go over that, it'll hide it. And I'm tying these jute strings really tight and tying them in a knot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my stars. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to hem a little section of it, making sure that my stars will show up. You know, you want to make sure that you're squishing these closer together, but you don't want to squish them so much that you can't see the stars. And if you're going to glue stars on there, then you don't have to worry about that. Okay. I'll go in with my next one. Doing the same thing, just folding it over, just like a, you know, about 1/4 of an inch, or a little less than 1/4 of an inch if you need to. Just want to fold over that raw edge. Okay, not too bad. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a plain one in between the next one and the next star. But I'm still using the darker fabric where I'm putting it, where I'm using the plain. I'm not going to put any of the light colored blue jeans in this section. Okay, so I've finished tying all of them on. You can see our star section up here. Now I'm going to go around and I'm going to unravel my jute string and press it out to the ends, and then I'm going to trim all the way around these ends to make them even, because I want all the outside to be, you know, more rustic. So I'm just going to take them, and what I do is take the string and I just go twist it backwards, and that kind of relieves all the strands like that. And it does take some time to do this, but you know, it's well worth it. Now these are kind of long. I am going to cut them so you don't have to worry about them being too long or anything. And so I'll do all this off camera, and I'll meet you right back in a minute. Okay, so I've unraveled all of my jute string, as you can see. Some of it pops up a little bit. You can take a little bit of hot glue and glue that down to make it stay a little bit more flatter if you need to. I've already trimmed a little bit on the bottom here. I just wanted to show you that once you have it trimmed to the right length that you want it to be, I'm going to take my scissors in and I'm going to go in and I'm going to cut the blue jeans. I'm just going to cut a few little slits in each of the blue jeans, the ends, to fluff them up so that you get a really good raveling effect on the outside of your wreath. And it's very, you know, farmhouse, Americana, rustic style, so that if you don't like that style, then you can just use ribbons to tie on all of your strip pieces. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, trimming it and fluffing up the ends of my blue jean strips, and then we'll go on to decorating it. Okay, so I've gone through and I've trimmed up all these edges, and I glued down some of these jute strings where they were kind of popping up. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take some grosgrain ribbon. This is navy, and it's the Ofre brand from Walmart, and it's 3/8 inch. And I'm just going to make a bow by just forming it like an awareness ribbon, and then just tucking that in like this and forming a bow. I'm going to put a little dab of glue in there to make the bow, and then I'm going to take this bow and I'm going to put it in different places all along my wreath, except for right here at the top on the right hand side. In this area I'm going to leave it blank for now because this is where my florals are going to go, and I want to make sure that, you know, I don't have to put any bows here if I don't need it, but I can go in later and put some more if I need to. So I'm going to stick my bow all along the edges here to hide some of this glue, and I'm going to put one of these buttons that I have in my stash, and it just little red gingham buttons, red and like a tan color, so it's going to go well with the burlap and the jute ribbon. So I'll start my ribbon off again, iron where I want it, how long I want it to be, and then I'll take my hot glue. I'm just going to put a little dab right there in the back, and then bring that together to meet right where I've crossed it here. Okay, and I'll have to put a little bit where they crisscross in the front. Okay, and then I'm going to place it. You know, figure out where I want to put it on my wreath here. And then I will put a dab of glue on the back. Press that down. This is one of my symbols. And then take my button, and I'm going to put some glue right in the middle here. Just hot glue that button on there. Just like that. So I'm just going to randomly, you know, well, get as many in as I can around the wreath. And I'm cutting these in 7-inch lengths. I have just over 9 feet left of my ribbon. Now I want to make sure that I can get as many as I can with it. I should be able to get like 15 different bows. Do some glue where the crisscross is first. And I'll pick another spot. I think I'm going to glue all my bows together first, and then decide, you know, how to place them evenly around. Okay, I'm going to continue to make these bows, and then when I have them ready to glue the buttons on, I'll come back and show you. Okay, so I've placed all of my bows. I've glued them on with the little buttons, except for this section right here. And then I left a little space here because this is where I'm going to tie the florals and bows. So I'll just leave this blank because you're not going to be able to see the bows and the buttons here anyway. Okay, so I was thinking that I'm going to place these redder buttons up here on these bows where I have my stars. Now I think I like that better to kind of you know, bring out this section of the stars, and then I'll place these other ones here to finish it off. Okay, So to glue these, I'm just putting the glue down on the bow itself. I hope you can see this because my glue gun does not stretch that far. And then I place the button on top, just like that. Okay, and then all I have to do is place these few other buttons. So that leaves me with a few. I might go in between some of these and put some more buttons. So now all we need to do is to make our ribbons, our bows, and our floral to put right here on the top. Well, to the side. So I will set this aside. I'm going to grab florals that I have. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my bow first. And then I'll just stick the florals inside underneath the bow to make that portion of our wreath. So I want to make our background bow out of this red satin. Let's see, I'm just going to make a tail. I want my tails to be kind of long, so I'm going to make the tail about 12 inches long. And then we'll make our loop about 10 inches. No, actually, I'll make it 12 inches as well. I want a big loop for the bottom bow. I'm just going to make 2 loops with this. Twist this loop. And I want my tails to go downward so that they're going to be hanging down from the side of the wreath. Okay, and so to hold this, I'm just going to use a pipe cleaner. I just want to hold it in place for now. So I can set this one aside. Then I'm going to grab this one, our star burlap. Now for this one, I'll make the tails about 10 inches long and the loop's about 10 inches. But I want to do about 4 loops. This is our star ribbon. And by that I mean the star of the show. Oops. Okay, so then I'll take this portion and I'm going to put it on top of this bow. And I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and wrap it around so I can hold this one together. Twist it in the back. Then I'm going to grab the blue. Now blue, or just do like about a 9-inch tail. And Same loop, 9-inch loop. And this one is a 1.5 inch, and the other two are 2.5 inch wide. This one I'll go ahead and do four loops on this one as well. With this one I'm going to turn it just a little bit more sideways. Okay, and then I'm going to grab a zip tie to zip tie them all together. Okay, and before I tighten it all the way, I'm going to stick another pipe cleaner in here that we can use to wrap around the wreath. And this other one that I have on here, I'm going to remove that one. So I'm just untwisting that other one, and I'm going to pull it out if I haven't done this too tightly. But I can cut it as well if I need to. So I think that's what I'll do. I'll just wrap it and tighten it a little bit. And I'm going to cut that one off. Just press it down so that the wires don't stick out. Okay. So now we can fluff up our bow. And then our tails, we go in and dovetail them. Sure, I got them all. Okay. So now we can attach our bow to the wreath and then decide on how we're going to place our florals. I'm just wrapping the pipe cleaner around the back. You might have to go in between some of these. And then pulling it tight, twisting it. Okay, and then you can cut off some of the excess. And then tuck that in underneath the blue jeans. That way it'll be out of the way. Okay. So if you need to fluff it up some more, we can do that. Okay, and then we can go in with some florals. Got these with the blue flowers that we can stick in there. Or you want to just put some roses in it. You just go in and like glue them right down inside. Or if you want to just pop them off, you could just stick one right here in the middle of your bow. Actually, I think that that is exactly what I'll do. You can also, if you want something more white, you can stick the magnolia in it. Now, my house is decorated with lots of magnolias. I love magnolias, so this is more me. Whatever you decide to do for florals, you can do that. And I'm going to go ahead and see this magnolia here, and then probably rose. And then when I'm done, I will place it on my door and show you what it looks like. Okay, so before I hang it up to show you on the door, I just wanted to show you how to make a hanger. And I'm just going to, let's see, I'm just going to take a zip tie and find the bar at the top here. So I'm just going to make a loop. Just like this, to hang it. You can also put a ribbon at the top and hang it from the ribbon if you want. So here we are. I think it came out so cute. You can see I added those little blue flowers and a couple little foam white roses to it on the top and the bottom, and a couple of little loops of the burlap ribbon. Okay, so the materials that you're going to need to make this block are some patriotic fabric, and this is a fat quarter bundle that I got from Walmart. So any patriotic fabric, and you're going to need some white background to match. Okay, you'll also need, your usual tools: a rotary cutter, ruler, rotary mat. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is cut out all of our fabric. From the white fabric, you will need 4 3.5-inch squares, and those squares are going to be our corner squares for our block. You'll also need 4 3.5 by 6.5-inch rectangles, and those we'll be using to make the flying geese units. Okay. You're also going to need 8 3.5-inch squares for our flying geese units. These will be whichever color that you choose for your points of the star. Okay. And then you're going to need a center square. And I've chosen this one from this fat quarter bundle because I want to fussy cut it out. It's got USA, Land of the Free, America. So I thought this would look really cute in the middle of our block. Okay. You'll need 4 strips for your sashing, and I've just cut this out of the fat quarter at the length of, I think it's like 18. Yeah, it's just the 18 by 2.5 inches. And I cut 4 of them out. You're not going to need the entire length, be 18, but I'm okay with that because I like to cut them a little longer, and I cut them, once I have it all together, I will cut them square. Okay. You'll also need a 18-inch square piece of fabric that is going to go behind our top pillow. It's going to be what I use to sandwich the top square and then quilt it. Now, you don't have to do that. You don't have to quilt it if you don't want to. Yeah, I like the look of it, so I'm going to do that. And you'll need some extra fabric for the binding, and I think I'm going to use this. It'll match the star points on the fabric, on the block on the front. And then for my back, I'm going to use this fabric because it even has a Sawtooth star in it. So I was really excited to see that. So this I think will look really good on the back of our pillow. And then the back, I'm going to make it to where it's a slip pillow, sort of like a pillow sham, where all you need to do is insert your pillow form. So first of all, we're going to just go ahead and start assembling our block. So grab my 8 3.5-inch squares and the 4 3.5 by 6.5-inch rectangles. And so what you'll need to do is to make our flying geese units is you'll just take one of your squares, and I'm going to draw a line diagonally from corner to corner. Just line up our ruler, and then you'll need a marking tool, a pen or a pencil, because it's not going to show. And so then you'll take it and line it up on your rectangle, and then you're going to sew it right down that line, sew on the line. And then when you're done with that one, you'll do the same thing for the next one. But first, we're going to go ahead and sew this because I want to show you what to do next. Okay, so I've sewn it all the way down this line, and now you're just going to fold it over and press it with your fingers. Just try not to stretch it too much. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it where it has a 1/4 inch seam left. And these you can save, for another project. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our next square. Let's see. I didn't draw my line yet. We'll draw our line. Okay. And then we'll just do the same thing we did on that side, on this side. And you're going to sew all the way down that line straight to the end here so that when you fold it over, it'll make your flying geese. Okay, so you can see I've used some clips to hold it down, but you can use pins or whatever you need. Okay, so I have sewn the other side, and I'm just going to fold it over and finger press it. And then I will cut it again with my scissors. Okay, and there's our flying geese unit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is iron this. And I've made my other ones, so I have them ready. So you need 4 units. And I'm just going to iron it to where these are just flat, just like it tends to go in that direction. So that's how I'm going to iron them. And I'll just flip it. And then you'll just do that to each of your units. Okay, so now that I've ironed all my units, I'm just going to start to lay them out. And here's where you'll put your center in the middle. Okay, and then you're going to put your background squares in each of the four corners. And just for a little tip, before you start, I would suggest starching your back quarters before you cut them out. And then that way you get a more precise cut, but you also, it'll give you better points and stuff whenever you're sewing everything together. It should, help you to get a nicer point in seams. Okay. Okay, so we have it all laid out, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this row first together, these two, and then I will sew the middle and then the bottom. Now when you go to sew the top, sew your seams away, and you'll do the same thing for the bottom. Sew them where your seams are pointed away from the middle. And then when you get to the middle unit, you will sew and turn your seams towards the middle block. And that way they're all opposite, so whenever you go to sew them all together, they'll match up. Okay? So I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm going to sew each of my rows, and then I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I've finished sewing each of the rows together. I just want to show you, like on the middle row right here, just whenever you go to sew, you can go slow, and then when you get to the middle here, you just want to make sure that your seam is going right through that point. If you can do that, make sure that you're just crossing that point, then you'll have, when you turn it out, you'll have good points. Okay? And now we're going to sew each row together, and you can do the same thing on here when you're going through your seam. Is just making sure that your seam is going to go right through that little point. Okay, so now I'm going to sew each of these rows together to make our block. Also, I wanted to show you, you have to match up your seams. You just want to nest your seams right next to each other and pin it or clip it. And I wanted to show you how, you can see here, like there's a gap on the bottom right there. You want to make sure, if you do have a little gap, that you're going to put that through your machine on the bottom. You want to make sure that it's on the bottom, so that whenever you're sewing, your machine is going to naturally straighten that gap out. Okay, so I've finished the block and I've ironed it, and now I'm just trimming it up. I want to trim it to a 12-inch square. You're going to have a little bit of hangover, it might be a little crooked along here, and so I just trim it up to 12 inches. Since it's not, I'm not putting it in a quilt, I'm just using it for a pillow. So I've already trimmed the other sides, and now I have a square 12-inch Sawtooth block. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sash it, and that's where our sashing strips come in. And I have cut these long. You could cut it to 12 inches if you want. The sides are going to be 12 inches. I'm just going to leave it long. I'm going to start at the top, and then I'll just trim off the excess. I'll do the same thing to this other side, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to do the top. Okay. Okay, so I have sewn the side sashes to the side, and now I just need to trim them. I ironed them already, and I'm ironing them to the red fabric. So, okay, so I'll just turn it, and I'll cut off the excess right here evenly. Okay, and I'll save these pieces for another project. Okay, so we have our side sashing, and now I'm just going to take another strip and I'm going to do the same thing and sew it to the top and the bottom. Like so. Okay, and then I'll just trim the sides as well when I'm done. So I'm going to do that and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I finished the top and the bottom, and now we have the sash all the way around. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fabric that's the same color as our points, and I'm going to cut some 1¼ inch strips, and I'm going to put another sash around it, just so this blue, will coordinate with our blue points. And that way we're going to have about a 17 or 18 inch square, so that it'll be big enough to put our 16-inch pillow form in. Okay, so I'm going to cut these up into 1½ inch strips. 1¼ inch strips. So now I'll just go and I'll sew these all the way around. Okay, so I've put on my second sashing. As you can see, I ironed it and I trimmed it and made it as flat as I could. So this is our top of our pillow, and it measured out to be approximately 17 inches square. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to quilt it. So I'm just going to put that aside. I'm going to grab a piece of just a plain white backing. This is not really going to show because it'll be inside your pillow. So it can be any, fabric that you want. I'll just lay it out. And this is about 18 by 22. It's like a fat quarter size. And then I cut out a piece of batting. I think my batting's like 20 by 20. Just going to layer that over the top. Just want to smooth it all out. And then I will put my top back on. Okay, and so now all we have to do is baste it. Now I'm using a piece of batting. Well, it's a fleece batting, but it's not fusible. You can use any kind of batting or fusible fleece to do this. And if you don't want to quilt the top of your pillow, you don't have to. I just like the look of it, Okay, so how I'm going to do this, let's see. You can free motion quilt it if you want, or just straight lines. I'm just going to follow the slant of these points and just cross hatch it in both directions. I'm not going to cross hatch over the sashing. I'm just going to do it in the block area. And then for the sashing, I'll just do a stitch in the ditch. I'm not going to quilt over the sashing. Okay, and so I'll just start basting it with my quilting safety pins. And see, these are the curved ones. Makes it easier to baste. And I'll just go ahead and put that all over the top, and then I'll quilt it, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I have finished quilting my top, and I have just a little few threads I need to cut off. But you can see I did a cross hatch in the middle, and then I just did stitch in the ditch around the sashing. Okay, I just did a basting stitch all the way around the edge with about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, just to keep it all intact. Okay, so now I'm just going to trim it up, trim away all my batting. And you can use scissors if you want, if you don't have a rotary cutter. I'm just going to use my rotary cutter. Okay, so now all that we need to do is start preparing our back. And you can see, I wanted to show you the back of the stitching, the quilting. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside for a minute and grab the fabric for my back. Okay, so for the backing, the way I'm doing this is I'm going to fold, have it layered over the edge so that it makes sort of like an envelope pillow where all you have to do is just insert your pillow form, take it out if you need to. Okay, so you want the top panel of your backing to be a little bit wider than the shorter end. Okay, because you want it to overlap. So my fat corner here is about 18 by 22. I'm going to cut it so that it is, we're going to have two pieces. I'm going to cut one end about 9 inches, and that will leave me with 13 inches on the other side so that we can overlap it. Before I do that, I want to measure this real quick just to be sure what we got here. Okay, so our top is 17 inches square. Okay, so take my fat quarter and cut a 9-inch piece off of one end. Okay, so now I'm going to take these to the machine and I want to hem them. So I'm going to fold over the edge about 1/2 of an inch. And then again, or you could do it at 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to flip this. And you're going to do the same thing with the other side. But the other side, I think I'll do the hem just a little bit shorter. And you can put as many clips or pins in it as you need. And I'm just going to go to the machine and top stitch this. And I'll do the same thing to this one. And then meet you right back here. Okay, so I've hemmed up both of my pieces of the backing. And I put 2 rows of top stitch. Okay, and I did that on both of them. Okay, and now all we have to do is put them on our back. Let's see, this is the way it's going to be. So turn it over. And you can do this in any direction that you want. If you prefer to have it like up and down, or if you want to do it side to side, whichever way is that you like. I think I'm going to do it this way. Okay, and this is our shorter piece, so this will be go on the bottom part, and this will go on top. and we're going to overlap them. And you can have it overlap, you know, probably enough that I could overlap it like 2 inches. You could do a little less if you want. I think I'm gonna go ahead with the 2 inches. Sure. Okay. And to keep it secure in place, I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use my safety pins and base the top of it all along here just to make sure that it's going to stay in place. And then you can also use some clips for the sides if you want. But you want it to hang off with just a little bit. I have it hanging off, and I'll secure it from the back, and then I'm going to sew it from the front. That way I know it should all line up well. Of course, you can use straight pins for these to do this if you want. Just go ahead and use my safety pins. Okay, that should be enough to secure it. And I'm going to turn it over. And right where I basted on my edges here, I'm just going to go and I'm going to sew it just maybe right above that line, just to give it a little bit more of a seam there, a little bit bigger than the 1/8 of an inch. Maybe not quite so a 1/4 of an inch, because then it'll go into your sashing. But yeah, I'm going to do that all the way around, and then we'll go on to the binding. Okay, so I'm done sewing that all the way around. I'm just going to take out my safety pins here. Okay, I have to say these safety pins worked really well for that. Okay, and you can see here's our flap to insert our pillow. Now I'm just going to trim off this excess, and then we'll start to bind it. Okay, so here's our pillow, almost finished. Now we're going to make the binding. Now for binding, you could do, instead, if you don't like to do binding, you can do a piping. But I mean, I'll do that in another tutorial for a pillow or something, but today I just wanted to do the binding. So we're going to cut our binding. Let's see, set this aside. And I decided to use this flag fabric to do the binding, because I like how if I cut it this way, it'll make sort of like a stripe around the whole pillow. So I'm just going to trim and off my edge here, straighten it. Okay. So for the binding, you don't want to go too far over this sewn edge. I mean, because we do have, if the 16-inch pillow form is going to fit, you don't want it to be too tight and then it not fit inside the for my ruler. So I'm going to measure between the seams. This ruler is 14 inches. About 14 right here. Go over. So it measured out to be about 16 and about 16 and a quarter. So that's good. So if we need that little space on the side for our binding, it should still fit inside the form and look really nice. Okay. So I'm going to cut my strips at 2 1/4 of an inch. And I'm probably going to cut 5 strips because these are 18 inches long, I believe. Yeah, about 18 and a half. So, yeah, I'll cut about 5. 4 would probably go around it, but I'm going to cut 5 to make sure it's long enough. And I want to miter my strips when I'm sew them all together. Okay. So now I'll just take these to the machine and I'm going to sew them together in a miter. That way they'll open up and just keep going. Okay, and to do that, in case you have never made them like that before, you can sew them end to end if you want. But to miter them, you're just going to overlap it just a little bit over here. And then you're going to sew diagonally here from this corner to this corner so that when you open it up, they're joined. Okay? And you can draw a line there too if it's easier for you. And I would overlap it a little bit like this. And you want to start right here in this corner and go right down to the corner here. And then draw your line. Okay, and then you'll sew on that line. And you'll do that to each of your strips so you have them all together. And then you can go in and cut off the excess. Okay. Okay, so I have all of my my strips sewn together, and now I'm just going to trim them off. I like to make my seam a little bit larger than 1/4 of an inch because I'm going to open them up when I iron them. And this way they lay a little bit more flat and it'll be less bulky whenever you go to turn it over. After you've done that to all of your, where you've mitered it, you're going to just turn it, fold it in half and iron it long ways. Okay, so I have my binding all ready to go. I just wanted to show you where I flattened it by opening the seam right there in the where the miters are, where it's sewn together, and then it makes such more flatter to do it that way. One good thing about making binding for a small project is so much easier to handle because with a quilt it's a lot more binding you have to work with. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to attach it from the back because I want to be able to turn it over to the front and then sew it down. You can do this by hand if you like to bind by hand. I do like to bind by hand. But for a small project like this, and I want to get done, I'm just going to machine bind it. So if you were going to bind it by hand, I would attach it to the front so you can turn it to the back and then bind it. Okay? So just start with taking our raw edge, lining it up, and I'm going to leave a amount right here so that we can attach the ends together. I'm going to do that further down a little bit, I think in the middle. So now I'm just going to go around and put some clips. So when you get down to the corner, before you turn it, you're going to want to sew all the way down to about 1/4 of an inch away. And then I turn my project, and then you're going to sew out to the corner of this edge, just sewing it this way like a miter with your thread. And then once you've done that, you can turn it, flipping it over this way and then back again. And then you'll start sewing down this edge. That way, whenever you turn it over to the other side, you're going to get a nice, crisp, mitered corner. And I'll show you on the machine when I'm sewing how to do that. Okay? Okay, so I just wanted to show you how I'm going to do this corner and how you can do each of the corners. If you've never done a binding, if you've never sewn a binding before, this will be helpful for you. And let's see. So I have my machine set to 1/4 of an inch seam. My hand's in the way. Okay, so we're almost to the corner. I'm going to stop about 1/4 of an inch away. Okay, and I'll lift up my foot here, and I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to sew right off the edge here over the corner. Okay. And then all you have to do is turn, going over that corner, making sure that these edges here are straight, and then flip it back over. And at that point, you could put a clip back right there to hold it. And then you'll turn your corner here. Do this. And then put your foot right over the edge there. And then I'll back up a couple of stitches, and then keep stitching along the side. And then you'll do that to every time that you come to a corner. Okay, and then when I get to the end to connect our binding, I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm down to the end, and the way that I do this is the easier method. There's other methods, but I I have about a 5-inch piece here. I'm going to cut this piece down to 2 inches. Since I find my scissors. Okay, so I'm just going to eyeball it, about 2-inch piece. Okay, and then this piece is longer, so I'm going to lay this out over that 2-inch piece that I just cut, and I'm going to cut it as well about 1/4 of an inch from where this piece is laying here, 1/4 of an inch from where the seam is. So about right here. Okay, and then I just take this piece and I'm just going to open up this one on the bottom and lay this one right inside of it. Just like that. Okay, looks good. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to fold it over just a tiny bit to give it a little bit of a hem. Not much. You don't have to have much, but just so that it isn't a raw edge. And then you're going to place this piece right back where you had it inside this one. Okay, I don't know if you can see that really good. Right? And make sure that it all lays flat. And then I will continue to sew this along the edge. And I'm going to go right past it, just to, and then back up, so to secure the stitches. Okay, and there's our edge. Okay, so now we're all done, and we can start to fold it over onto the front side. This, and then here you can go ahead and put some clips too, just to clip it in place. And you'll do it just like that, and then you just go right on the edge here, about 1/8 of an inch in, and sew your binding down to the front. Okay, and any loose threads you find, you will have some of them. You just cut those off. Okay, and then sew the top stitch. Okay, so I'll do that, and then I'll show you what the pillow looks like. Okay, so before I continue, I just wanted to show you how to do the corners. You'll just lay it flat down one way like this when you get to the corner, and then you'll just take the other side and turn it right over that corner. Kind of hard to do with my gloves on. Okay, yeah. You're just going to go straight, lay it down straight here, and then when you get to the corner, turn it over like this, and then you can put a clip there. To hold it down, and then when you go to sew, you're going to sew all the way on the edge here, and then you'll catch this edge and sew down the other direction and keep going that way. Okay, so here is our completed pillow. Turn it around so you can see the back. Okay, so for the supplies that you're going to need, You'll need your paint star stick. Okay, and then I've got this mesh from Hobby Lobby that's red, white, and it looks like silver instead of, or silvery white because of the foil. It's really pretty. Okay, and then I have a variety of ribbons from Hobby Lobby. Now you can get all of your stuff from Dollar Tree or Walmart, any of the places that sell ribbons and mesh that you can get on a budget, whatever your budget will allow. Okay, and you'll need some pipe cleaners, a few zip ties, some scissors, and a rotary cutter and a rotary mat. If you don't want to use, if you don't have a rotary cutter, you can use some scissors. And then you'll probably need your glue gun, and if you want, a sign to go on your swag. And I'm going to use this sign that I made myself using clip art that I just Mod Podged on this, and I made out of smaller paint stir sticks and craft sticks. Okay, so I'll set all this aside and show you what to do next. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is to set up our paint stir stick with our pipe cleaners. So first thing is I'm going to make a hanger for the back, and I'll just take my pipe cleaner around the narrow edges here, around that curve. And then give it a really good tight twist a couple of times. And then I'm just going to round it off like this. And then just take the ends and just start to wrap them around the circle. And I'll do that to both sides. Okay, and that'll give you a good sturdy hanger to hang up your swag. Okay, so this is the back. I'm going to turn it over and then start to place my other pipe cleaners. And you're going to want to place 8 of them. Let's see, 5, 7, 8. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll take one right underneath where I placed that hanger for the back, and I'm going to take it off to the side here, and I want to twist that really, really tight. And then I will take another one and I'll do the same thing going in the opposite direction. Okay, and they might move a little bit, so you don't have to, but you can put some hot glue on here to keep them from moving, and I'm going to do that myself. Okay, and then I'll come down and go ahead and go to the bottom, and about 2.5 to 3 inches from the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the top, and I want 2 of them going in the opposite directions. And this is where the glue will come really in handy, especially on the bottom, so that this doesn't slip off. Okay, and then I'm going to go and find my center point here in between these two. And you can use your cutting board here to measure it out. It's about 15 inches, so I'll come in right about 7.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5 should be center. And then taking it to the opposite. Okay, so for your remaining two, you're going to just put it in the center of these two. And these you want to point straight up, since you're just putting one right here. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that I did go ahead and put some hot glue on these, and I put a piece of felt over them so that they're good and sturdy on here. And you can do this on the back. You don't have to do it on the front. I also put a little piece right here with some glue right below where I made my hanger. Just wanted to keep that on there really good and sturdy. Okay, so now we're going to cut our mesh, and you can see my mesh roll is very small, but this is because I've already filmed this and my microphone went out, so I have to refilm it to show you how to cut the mesh. So I'm cutting the mesh at 24 inches long, so you're going to need 8 24-inch pieces of mesh, and I'm just going to use my rotary cutter. You just want to cut it like so. So you need 8 of these. And then to fold it, okay, so to fold it, I'm starting with the underside of the curl, because it's just a little bit easier for me to fold over this edge. And you just want to fold it over about an inch thick or so, and fold it over for a couple of times, just rolling it. And then I'll do the other end the same way. Just want to cover those raw edges. And then I'm going to flip it. And then I'll just start to gather it in the center. Just like an accordion. And when you get to the end, take it and pinch it. And you have like a cruffle, which will look kind of like a bow. Okay, and so you'll make 8 of these. And then you'll need 8 12-inch pieces of mesh. And for the 12-inch pieces, we're going to make some double curls, is what I call them. So just come over and cut 12 inches. And now for this mesh, you can use a different color. You can use a solid white, blue, or red if you want. And I'm basically going to do the same thing I did earlier, and I'm going to curl this one end up a couple times and clip it. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other end. This time I'm just going to roll them up to meet. So you'll have like 2 curled ends like this. And you'll need 8 of these. Now we'll start putting our cruffles onto our base. So you'll just take one of your larger pieces, and you're going to place it right in between the pipe cleaners, and then just give it a really good tight pull and twist. Okay, and then these ones that are in the very middle, the single ones, you just want to get these pipe cleaners straight up so they won't be in the way, and we're going to do those last. Okay, so you just take another one, place it in the next pipe cleaner. Make sure you pull it really tight and give it a couple of twists. Okay, and we'll do the same thing to the one on the bottom. And then I will turn this around. And do the same thing here. Okay, and then next one. Got one more for the top. Okay, so now we can go to our center, the two pipe cleaners in the center, and place another one. Our next one. Okay, so now we have all of these on. Next thing I'm going to do is start to cut the ribbons. And so when we go to do our ribbons, we're going to put one of these extra curls in there with our ribbon. And that's just going to make it a little bit more fluffy and give it some more texture. Okay, so for our ribbon, we're going to cut 6 bundles of tails to put, where we're going to put those all the way around. I'm not going to put them in the middle too, because I'm going to put a sign there. So I'm going to start with this blue, which is a beautiful, glittery, shiny blue. It's going to give our swag some sparkle. Okay, and I'm going to cut each one at, let's see, I'm going to cut them at about 13 inches because I want to dovetail the ends. I want it to still be long enough, so you can use your scissors to cut them, or you can use a rotary cutter. I'm just going to use my rotary cutter. Let's see, turn it around this way. Okay, so I'll go ahead and finish this. I'm going to also use this red polka dot, this red, white, and blue stripe, and this 1.5 inch white, and this red shimmery 1.5 inch. Wait, I say this was 1.5 inches, 2.5 inches. Okay. So I'm going to cut out all this ribbon and show you what to do next. Okay, so I've cut out all my ribbon and I've dovetailed the ends. And so now I'm going to start to make my bundles. And I decided all I'm going to do is use 3 of these blue ones, so you don't have to cut 6 of them, although I've already cut 6. But you'll need 3 of the blue, You'll need 6 of these white ones. And then I'm going to take one of these red ones, of the 1.5 red. So you'll need 3 of these. And then you'll need 6 of these striped ones. Now you can do any color ribbons and color combinations that you want. It doesn't have to be exactly the way that I do it. I just pinch them all in the middle, kind of give them a little bend. This, and then I'll pair it with one of the curls that we made, the out of the 12-inch mesh, and I'll put my clip on it just for a minute to hold that. And then on our swag, just going to go in and starting at the top, I'm going to place this one in the first one at the top on this side. Take out my clip and twist it really tight a couple of times. And then we'll flip them out after I've put all the other ones in there. And so the next one that I did, let's see, I'm going to change up the color combination. I'm going to start with the polka dot reds, pair it with a white, and then I'm going to place one of these white ones. Let's say we're going to do the striped one first, and then one of these whites, and then give it a nice pinch in the middle. And then we will pair it with our curl. And then we'll go in and attach this one. So you can do it in any color combination you want. I'm going to do it like this and do either. So you'll need 3 of these bundles and 3 of the other ones. So I'll go to my swag and I'll place it in the next one. Okay, and then I'll make another one just like we did the first one and put it in this last one on this row. And then I'll turn it and I'll start with the first one here on this end and go all the way around. Okay, so once you've placed all of your ribbon bundles, you still have 2 curls left. So I'm going to put these curls in that middle section. Now you can put ribbon in here if you want. If you don't want to put a sign, or even if you put a sign, you could put ribbon. I was going to leave it off because I wanted to make sure my sign will fit first. And you wouldn't be able to see the ribbons underneath it. Okay, so now we can fluff out the ribbons that we put on. You just want to take them and pull them so they, fluff them up, shape them so you can see them. Okay, and you'll do that to each of these bundles. And then when you're done, you can go in and give your twists here, your little pipe cleaners, another little few twists, and then cut them off and tuck them underneath there so that they'll be out of the way and not visible. And then just tuck that part in the back and underneath. Okay, I'm going to finish fluffing out my ribbons and then we'll make our bow for the top. So now we're going to start our bow. And I want to incorporate this blue. I'm going to make it my base. Let's see. I want to tell it's about at least 8 inches. And we'll make our loops about 10. Okay, so I'm just measuring out to 10 and then pinching it and then bringing it in like this. I'm going to make at least 4 loops, I think. Okay, and then I'll cut my tail again at 8. And I'm going to clip this. I'm going to clip it and set this one aside so I can make the rest of my bow. Okay, and then I will use the white. And this white is a satin white, but it's a little kind of papery thin satin. You can use, I mean, it doesn't matter which one you use. Let's see, I'll make that one 8 inches tail. And this time we're going to make it a 9-inch or 8-inch loop. I think I'll go with the 8-inch. Let's go with a 9-inch loop on this one. And this one is not double-sided, so you want to make sure that you've got it turned to the pretty side, the satin side. I'm going to make 2 loops with this one. If you have a bow maker, you can make this on your bow maker. Let's come in here and attach it. This one. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one that I did the white. I'm just going to make 2 loop at 9 inches, 8-inch tails and 9-inch loops. I think I'll do 3 loops on this one. And then cut my tail. Okay, then make, so out of the 1.5 inch, still going to do 8-inch tails. And then I think I'll do an 8-inch loop. And we'll do 4 loops on this one. Okay, and I'll do one more with the with the 1.5-inch white satin. Go ahead and do 4 loops on this one too. Okay, so now we're going to put all of our ribbons together, and I'm going to use a zip tie to zip tie them. This is where a bow maker would probably come in handy. You're trying to do such a large bow. Okay, and then all we have left is our blue. Grab my zip tie. And before you tighten it up all the way, you're going to stick a pipe cleaner underneath there so that we can use it to attach it to our swag. Just going to pull it through, make sure that it's even, and then finish tightening the zip tie. Really, really tight. Cut off that tail. Okay, so now all we have to do is fluff up our bow. You just want to pull it, pulling out all the loops. Then you want to kind of mix them up so you want to pull them in different directions so that you get the different looks of each ribbon. And then you can go in and dovetail your ends of your tails. Now, if you prefer to slant cut them, you can do that too. You don't have to dovetail them. I think I'm going to slant cut them this time. And then once you have the bow on your swag, you can fluff it out some more, rearrange it if you need to. Okay, so now we can attach it to the top of our swag. So I'm going to try to get this into the camera as best I can because it's really big swag. So you're just going to take your pipe cleaners and you're going to find the top of your swag stick here, paint stir stick, and then go in there and pull these through to the back and then twist them up. And then once you have this done, you can hot glue these on here as well. Put some hot glue on the back of them to make sure that they don't come apart. So I have to get it off camera to put these in here. And I'm just doing the same thing, you know, just twisted it really, really tight. Okay, now our bow's on, and then we can start fluffing it out. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is put on the sign. Okay, one more thing I wanted to show you on the back of our stick. You can leave it like this if you want, or you can put a piece of felt to cover the works on the back. Let's see. And this also helps to prevent any scratching on your door when you hang it up as well. So you just hot glue that down. And when you get up here to where the hanger is, I would just put the felt right up to the hanger so it doesn't cover your hanger. Okay, you can also do this with a piece of ribbon if you prefer. Okay, so before we put our sign on, I wanted to show you that I've made like a little bundle of ribbons here. And I just put a pipe cleaner around it. And I'm going to attach this to the bottom of my swag because I like to have them, you know, like hanging from the bottom. So I'm going to take it and I'm just going to go in and, you know, right here at the bottom, I'm going to attach it. Just going to give it some twists underneath here. And that'll just hang. Okay. And now I'm going to attach the sign. And I've got my sign all ready. I just hot glued these pipe cleaners on the back, put some felt over it, and so now I can use it to attach. And I'm going to put it a little bit lower, you know, underneath my bow that's on top so that it doesn't hide the bow. And attach it just like this. And I'm just going to pull these pipe cleaners through the mesh and around the paint stir stick. Okay, and I don't know if I'll be able to get all this on camera, so I'll do it off camera and then I will hang it up and show you what it looks like. So here we are. Our swag is all finished. Hung it up on my door. So hey everybody, let's make a wreath with the leftover mesh and jute string and patriotic embellishments that we have left over. Since I don't have enough mesh to go and cover the entire wired wreath form, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it all like over halfway around the wreath form, and then I'm going to cover the rest of it with this jute. And then where the jute is, I'm going to put our sign. So you can still make a nice wreath even if you don't have quite enough mesh by just using what you do have left over to make something pretty. So that's what we're going to do today, and let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is to wrap this jute around the wreath form. I have this wreath form I purchased on Amazon, and it has 7 sections, and it's a 12-inch wreath. So I'm going to wrap the jute around 3 sections. I think that should be good. So the way I start this is I'm just going to pull it under here, and I'm going to just tie it. Make a little knot, just tying a little knot in it. And then I'll go back and I'll put some hot glue to secure it. Try and turn it towards the back. And then you can usually pull it a little bit tighter. And then I'll glue it. But mainly what you're going to do is you're just going to start wrapping it around the wreath like this. And it's fairly easy. Just keep going. I'll go a couple of rounds and then scooch it all in. Make sure it's even. Here, do a couple of rounds first. And then you can go and you can put a little bit of hot glue on some of the metal here to help secure it. So I have one that's already made like this. So you've got all this section done. And now we can go in with our mesh and start filling in all the other sections. So I will start by cutting our mesh. I'm going to cut it about 12 inches. And you can see I've had this in my stash a long time. It's kind of wrinkled up. I'm going to measure this whole square here is 12 inches. So I'm going to measure that out and just cut it with my rotary cutter. And then take the mesh. And I'm just going to make a ruffle with it. Start by curling under one end. And just pull it, gather it in. You get to the other side. Just make a little ruffle. And then I'm going to put them on the middle two bars here, since it's going to cover both ends here. And then you can put your pipe cleaners on first if you like. Just get a couple good twists, push it up against the jute. And I'm going in and I'm going to put red, blue all the way down the line, putting about 3 of them in each section. I'll take my blue mesh, measure out 12 inches. And then go in and do a ruffle with the blue. Take the wreath. And another pipe cleaner. And lay the blue across, pulling it tightly, giving it a couple of twists. So I'm going to go on and do the rest, and then I'll meet you back here in a moment. Okay, so I've got it all done. I had a few of the white mesh left, so I put a little bit of curls in it to give it some more white, a little bit more dimension. And so now I'm going to attach my sign here to the side. And this sign is just 3 wooden stars that came in a package from Walmart, and then I painted them red, white, and blue and stenciled the USA on it, and attached them to a piece of a paint stick, and then attached my wires with some hot glue and some felt. Very easy to do. So I'm just gonna put that on here. So turn it over and twist my wires. Tuck the wires away so that it doesn't stick out or scratch any surface that you put the wreath on. Okay. And now you can go in and you can put ribbons, patriotic ribbons. I don't have any, so I just have these flags. These little flags I got also in a package from Walmart. So I'm just going to place them inside the wreath here somewhere. To give it some embellishment. I mean, this is very simple. It's not anything too fancy or lavish or anything, and you'll want to play around with it and just make it your own. But with limited amounts of mesh, and I think it came out pretty good. So I'm gonna just attach these in here with some wire, or might use a zip tie so I can place it in there. Then I'll put one on this side. And they'll be ready to hang on your wall or your front door.
Thanks for watching. I hope you had fun crafting along with me. If you did, leave a comment, share with a crafty friend, and subscribe for more sewing, wreaths, and seasonal decor. Happy 4th of July, and see you next time.